This is the Geek Gab with your host, Daddy Warpig. I am back. The Geek Gab is 1 hour of anything at all that I, your host, want to talk about. Geekish things, comics, movies, video games, books, anything and everything. For those of you hanging out in the chat, type in questions, and if I like it and want to answer it, I or my esteemed guests will take on the question. We are broadcasting live, as always, from the secret bunker deep underneath the House of Geekery to protect us from the hunter-killer robots seeking out your host. By the way, you can catch me, Daddy Warpig, on the air Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. for the Kick-Ass Geek Cast, half an hour of news and commentary. You can also catch me at the House of Geekery, daddywarpig.com. Once again, that is daddywarpig.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter at daddy_warpig, at daddy_warpig. Our guests today are Stream Mom Remy Punks, which if you have been hanging out in and or around Gamergate, you should have seen several of her tweets. Go ahead and say hi.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
And our other guest is the secret developer guest, a good friend of mine, Doranal, who is incognito just in case crazy people decide to threaten him because he knows me. Go ahead and give folks a yell.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. So, let me grab a look at the chat. Somebody, does anybody want to start first, or do I get to go? No? All right.
You're the boss. I'm gonna sit here and do as I'm told. That's what I do on streams.
I was talking with Dornall's significant other because, like your host, he just saw John Wick, which was, I think, and I mentioned this on last Sunday's program, and the reason why I get to mention it again is because this is the Geek Gab, and I get to talk about what I want. But Dornall had a interesting, or at least the opinion that I got reflected through his significant other was cool enough that I wanted to give him a chance to talk about it, all he felt like. John Wick, if you don't know, and shame on you if you don't know, man, I am disappointed. If you are part of this audience and you don't know what John Wick, that hurts me inside. John Wick is an action movie. It's got Keanu Reeves in one of the best performances of his career. I'm not saying it's absolutely the best, but it is definitely in the top 5. He plays a hard-bitten mafia, organized crime assassin who has been retired for 5 years. Then bad people do bad things, and he is forced to explain to them, using 9mm words, the realities of life. So, Dornall, if you...
Well, what can I say? I mean, I have a confession to make, and after watching this movie, I realized that I actually really like Keanu Reeves movies. What are you going to do? So this is a great movie for Keanu Reeves just because of the action, because I think on the AV Club review put it, he was perfectly cast as a blank slate. They set up the world and the premise, and they sort of get right into the action more or less as soon as they can. But I think what really caught me about this film is that the setting was it was stylized, but it was also really sort of detailed. They did a great job of crafting this sort of interesting, and I mean, you might call it like a generic crime movie setting, but you know the detail they put into it, like the way he interacts with the police near the beginning of the movie, and there's this whole underworld of criminals that they all have their own currency, and you know they all pay each other in golden coins, and they don't treat the audience like idiots. They don't over explain everything. You just sort of you sit in and you go along with it, and you're sort of let into this crazy, interesting underground world of theirs.
And honestly, what made me want to talk to you about this was that you caught something that I just didn't get when I watched the movie, which is those gold coins, the currency that they're being paid in is a favor.
Yeah.
I didn't get that when I was watching the movie, and when that was pointed out to me, I was like, wow, that's brilliant.
It's great. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't expect that they could spend that like as if it were real money, but there's a point in the movie where John Wick, the Keanu Reeves character, he's got a prisoner and he needs prisoner taken care of. Well, he meets up with another assassin, and it's just a minor scene where he's got a prisoner and he needs to take care of it, but he needs to go off and take care of business. And by business, for those of you who haven't been convinced to see the movie yet, is shooting people in the face point blank. Yeah, and sometimes stabbing. That was one of my wife's favorite scenes, by the way. Remind me to get back to that later. But he meets this minor character played by Clark Peters from The Wire, and he says, I've got this prisoner here. How would you like to earn a coin? And so it's not like something that he can spend on money or cars or anything. It's more like, here, you do a solid for me and you earn this coin. So instead of necessarily having to repay that favor to John Wick, he's got a coin that he can then trade in with anybody else.
And it puts that scene in the early part of the movie when he brings up the case from underneath the floor and he opens it up and he has those mounds of gold coins there. When I heard that they are favor coins, I just flashed back to that scene, and you're thinking, oh my God, people owe him because he's been collecting those and hasn't done anything with them, and he had like 100 of them at least.
Yeah, he had them all laid out. It made that whole scene sort of interesting. What you expect, he's returning to his life of crime. He's returning to that world, and he pulls up. You know that he's going after an arsenal. You've seen all these movies before, but he opens up his arsenal, and half of the case is these pussy-looking handguns, and the other half of the case is just lined with gold. There's gold coins, and it's like, wow, what is that? Why does he need gold for? Anybody can he probably has all the money that he wants. If you see the way he lives and the cars that he drives and everything, you're like, wow, this guy's loaded.
Can I ask a movie geek question, since I have not gotten to see it yet, unfortunately? It's the director's first time directing. He has a stunt background, and is a fairly well-known stuntman. I mean, is it, as kind of a movie nerd, is there a good flow to it? Is the storytelling solid? Can you tell that it's his first time in the director's chair?
I didn't tell. I mean, it wasn't. I've seen some directors who you see their movie and you go, oh yeah, that was a good movie, but this was a little bit too long, or that was a little bit short, or they didn't lay the groundwork for that scene earlier. But John Wick was not one of them. They did some really, really good. At one point in the movie, he has to do some fancy stuff in a car just to get through this scene, where he's fighting people, and they actually take time out very early on in the movie to establish that, yeah, he is that good with an automobile, and that they use that particular scene of showing that he's that good with an automobile, not just what they call laying pipe, but to develop his character a little bit more, and you get a feel for who he is now that he is alone and his wife isn't with him. So the script writing was really, really good, and most of the problems in movies could be traced back to bad script writing, or screenwriting, excuse me. But I didn't sense any roughness to it, any pieces where you think it might have been cut a little bit better, or they needed a little bit extra time here or there.
That's awesome. I'm a big Keanu Reeves fan. I know you were saying that it can kind of be embarrassing to admit that kind of thing, but he's one of those actors that, because he is so flat in his delivery in a lot of parts and a lot of roles that he's done, I think that people kind of take for granted. I mean, in Little Buddha, he's breathtaking in that movie, and so. But I think it takes a very solid director to really bring out how brilliant he is at what he does, which is why I asked. Like, I think a lot of the things that he's been in that have seemed sort of silly and contrived isn't so much the way that he acts, but what's been done around him to kind of showcase his talent.
I think that's a great point. He's definitely one of those actors that you have to find the right people to work with, and you have to find the right projects for him to work on. I thought like if you saw 47 Ronin, I thought that was an okay movie.
I liked it quite a lot. So I have odd. I'm comfortable admitting I have odd movie taste. So.
Well, I mean, that's fine if that sort of action or fantasy or Eastern fantasy movie sort of appeals to you. There's nothing wrong with it. But my wife and I saw it in the theater, and we couldn't actually control ourselves. The first line he got, the way he spoke it was in sort of that typical, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure kind of voice, and we just cracked up. I felt so awful for everybody in the theater, right? So, like, other than being an all right movie, I thought that sometimes he does that stuff, and he does those line readings, and you sort of groan.
I will say this too. The reason why I wouldn't have thought it was a first-time director is because he does a lot of interesting camera work. None of the fight scenes seem like repetitions of each other, and they don't even seem like they come from the same director almost, just because they're unique, not in what happens, but the way it's lit, the way it's shot. They all feel like a cohesive whole, but they're each different enough that it feels like a separate scene. It feels like there's emotional beats to the scene that are different from fight to fight, and the stakes are different from fight to fight, and the director brings it all out so where each fight is different, but they all feel like part of the same movie.
Well, and I just pulled up his bio, just so that folks know, the director's name is Chad, and I hope I don't say the last name wrong, Stalsky. He, according to Internet Movie Database, he comes from a kickboxing background, and then he has a humongous list of stunt credits, from The Hunger Games to Sherlock Holmes to, X-Men Origins, just on and on, 300, like V for Vendetta, very big movies he's been the stunt coordinator on, and actually working as a stunt double, like in the Dukes of Hazzard and various other things. And I think that when you have an action film, maybe having that physical knowledge of what these sorts of scenes work like, I think could really add a lot of depth. And because a lot of action scenes are throwaways. It's like, okay, that thing exploded, that person got hit, that was cool, move on. But there's other movies that really make an art out of it, and I appreciate that. I know a lot of people weren't fond of Alexander because it was so over the top, but the fight scenes in that movie were just so gritty and so dirty because they had stunt people actually helping cut the scenes together and making it really visceral. So I appreciate that kind of thing.
That reminds me of the point about the knife fight, but this is John's point to make, so he asked me to remind him about it, so I'm reminding him about the knife.
Oh, about the knife fight. Well, I do want to address the direction a little bit.
Go ahead, please.
One thing I think I don't know, if you watch a lot of action movies of the past decade, I think the elephant in the room is shaky cam. And there's no shaky cam. Everything is beautifully staged, beautifully choreographed, and we know that the actors have the acting chops. Keanu's been doing this stuff since The Matrix, and all the action scenes are beautiful. You understand every piece of movement that's going on. You understand why they're moving, and they've got a couple of very interesting. A very fun thing to watch is that they do this several times where, because John Wick's fighting multiple bodyguards or assassins, at a time. Several times during the movie, he does this thing where he'll incapacitate or stun the person that he's in close combat with. Someone gets up and close and he has to incapacitate them. Once he doesn't kill them right away because he's got everybody else shooting at him, so he'll incapacitate them and then have a gunfight with the other 3 people in the room, and then finally finish off the other guy in the room. It happens 3 or 4 times during the movie, and it's really effective, and it's interesting to watch, and it also shows how much of a badass he is. And
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. In one of the movies I think is really, really brilliantly done is Saving Private Ryan. And one of the things that I love about Saving Private Ryan is in the climax scene when they're in that town, there's all these troop movements going on and all of these soldiers maneuvering in and out and around buildings. And Steven Spielberg establishes a perfect sense of 3D space to where where each character is. So he'll show a shot from one character's POV looking up the street, then immediately he'll cut to the character they're looking at, looking back down the street, so you can tell, okay, these 2 guys are at 2 different ends of the same street, and you can see the buildings on either side, you can see what's going on, and it makes it feel like you're watching a real you're walking around the streets of a real town. It's a perfectly formed 3-dimensional town, and he's doing it all through how he directs 2-dimensional cameras. And the reason why this is important with John Wick is when he's setting up these action scenes, the way he shoots it and the way you watch it, you have this perfect sense of space. You know where in this one area there is a pool, a lounge area with tables and chairs, a wall of frosted glass, and then a hallway behind that leads out to the right to a door. And he comes in the door, he hits somebody, and then there's a hallway down the way with the frosted glass on the left. You know exactly where everything is every single moment of that fight. You know where he is in the hallway, you know where the pool is, you know where the people in the pool are, and you watch them move around like you could watch a camera recording a chess match. You're never lost. You're never wondering what the hell's going on. You're never wondering who's running towards someone, who's running away. It's beautiful, and I haven't seen something that solidly done since Saving Private Ryan. That's why it was just incredible to see all of those things play out. No shaky cam, and you maintain this beautiful sense of knowing what's going on and just being awed and impressed by what John Wick is doing in these fights. Just the character themselves, what they're capable of doing, is just mind-blowing. It shows you exactly who he is and why he has the legend he does. I interrupted you.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what the scene with the knife displays, is his like who he is and what he's about. You forget the Russian mob talks him up. They call him Baba Yaga, right? They talk him up as being this awful, terrible assassin. And so far, you're watching the movie, and this is fairly early in the movie, and you're like, this guy's just one of these action movie badasses. He can beat anybody. He can beat 5 anybodies. But then there's this scene in a club where he's fighting a bunch of people, and they had another one of those scenes where he incapacitates some guy, and he kills off everybody else in the room, and then he fights for the guy's knife, and he ends up killing him with the knife, but he backs him up against the wall, and he slides down, and he locks eyes with the guy as he's sliding down to the floor dying, and it's chilling. It's something that you sort of didn't really expect at that point. I didn't mean to spoil that for you, but it's quite a scene, because it says a lot more about the character. You learn he's not just a badass. He really earned that reputation as a brutal killer.
And the nice thing about that is it's so subtle. It's just kind of there. It's just matter-of-factly placed it out, like the director just said, hey, I'm just going to leave this sitting here. Those of you that notice it, fine. Those of you that don't, that's cool too. A lot of the problem with people who are doing something for the first time is they're having they're not comfortable with their own skills. They're not comfortable with the medium they're working in. So they're kind of pushing things a little bit too hard, to where the violence is a little bit too violent, and the romance is a little bit too romantic, and the sentimental moments is just a little bit too sentimental. They're trying to push you, not even on purpose, just because they're not comfortable, they're not confident yet. But you just do not get this sense with John Wick. It is just confident and matter of fact, and all of these details are just embedded in the world that he doesn't even go out of his way to call your attention to any of them. It's just, if you notice what's going on, you pay attention to what's going on, there's so much you can pick up, and if you don't, then you'll love a fast action movie anyway.
I have a question. Have either of you seen The Raid Redemption?
No. Oh, and I promised to. I'm a terrible, terrible human being. I promised your wife I would, and I haven't. I'm a shameful, shameful, shameful oath breaker.
I have not, but I'm enjoying listening to Daddy like give himself a really hard time for not watching it, so I was just going to be quiet and listen. So I am a mean and horrible person.
Well, you seem like you're a action movie fan, so I wanted to bring that one up. I don't know if you do kung fu movies or.
Absolutely, totally, yeah. I have I opened Notepad because I'm making a list while we talk of things that I need to go check out.
People in the comments are bringing it up.
This is great. I wanted to compliment John Wick by saying that this is the best movie I've seen since seeing The Raid Redemption, and I saw The Raid Redemption just last year or a year ago, or 2 years ago, I think. Just really recently, not right before The Raid 2 came out. And The Raid Redemption it's got to be the among the top 5 action movies I have ever seen. I'm just going to put that out there. So it's tough to. I wanted to make that comparison with John Wick. I don't think that'll mean anything to you until you guys see it. But
no, I definitely will check it out though.
Top 5 action movies. That's a big. I'm an action movie junkie. I love action movies.
Oh no, I mean the next 4 are the hard ones, because number 1 is Die Hard, and it will always be Die Hard.
Yeah. You can't. Die Hard is the perfect action movie. It became the template for every other action movie after it.
The entire Die Hard series for my daughter and I are one of our like mommy-daughter things, just to show like the action movie blood in my house. When the latest movie came out, it premiered. They had it so that they showed all of the movies back to back all day at the movie theater, and you could buy a pass, and it was a school day. And so because her grades were so good, I was like, you can totally skip school, and we're just going to go watch Die Hard all day, and it's going to be absolutely awesome. And she was such a good kid that she was like, Mom, I can't skip school. So we ended up missing part of the first one. But she's seen it so many times it didn't really matter for her. But those are an institution in our household.
That's great.
You can track cultural changes through the movies too, because she was laughing about how high people used to wear their pants. And you can tell the time progression in the movies is simply based on how high someone's jeans are pulled up. It was very funny.
Oh, I just watched all the Die Hards less than a year ago. I watched all 3 of them.
Such solid movies. And then now we like schlock too, though. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest with everybody that's watching. Like, I like absolute bad action as well. Like, it doesn't have to be quality, it doesn't have to be well done. I'm like a huge Fast and the Furious fan. Like, I love those movies too. And my least favorite would be Tokyo Drift, simply because I love drift cars, and those movies are car porn. I mean, when they actually take the time to make it about the cars, the first one was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I was like, this is car porn. I love this. And then when you got to Tokyo Drift, they were showing the chicks, not necessarily the cars, and really showcasing the engines and those sweeping shots they do of them. I still love the movie. I love the driving stunts in it and everything, but those movies are another one of my, like, if I'm home alone, I'm going to put it on in the background while I do stuff around the house.
I had a reviewer that I kind of respect just went nuts over the Fast and the Furious, and I'd seen the first one, and it was a great movie. I loved the first one, and I'd seen part of the second one, which was, I think, Tokyo Drift was the second one, and I just hated it, and I'm just like, nope, I'm not watching these anymore, and I just kind of tuned him out. And he was going on and on about them, and so I finally went back and watched the whole series up to and including 6, and if you leave out Tokyo Drift, and I think the next one after that I didn't like either, but the rest of the series are just actually surprisingly, shockingly good action movies.
I enjoy the hell out of them, and I like that they're trying to fix the timeline and make Drift seem less, because it was completely out of left field. You're like, why is this even where it is, and this doesn't make any, like, not that you're really watching, the Fast and the Furious movies for plot. I mean, I'm not trying to joke with any, nobody watches those movies for plot, but trying to make that movie, stick out and seem less goofy, I think is a good, I'm sad because of what it means to characters that I care about, but I think that it's a good move on their part. But just, I mean, and it's got, like, the Rock is in it, and, like, it's gotten so much bigger than what it was. Like, it was a great movie to start with, and now it's like this institution, and I love it. I'm a nerd. I'll be quiet.
I think this is just supposition on my part, but Tokyo Drift feels like somebody had a script, and the studio bought it, and they realized that it wasn't quite very good, and so they decided to try and link it to the Fast and the Furious and put the Fast and the Furious name on it so they could get it out and get it sold so that more people would go see it. That's, whenever I watch it, there's been a couple of movies like that to where the sequel, you're just like, what the hell was that? I don't get it. And it's because it wasn't originally written as a sequel to this other movie. They just stuck the name on it.
What happened was both of the leads they had other projects. They weren't interested in doing another Fast and the Furious movie, and totally respectful. And there was some studio issues going on about people's personal lives, and it was icky, but they wanted to keep the franchise going, and drifting had just become super popular in the States, and people who weren't, car geeks were getting into and hearing about drifting. There were video games coming out about drifting, which I think is really the first introduction the country really had to it. And then there was like a show on MTV about it. And it was just very cool and hip to have the low-slung drift cars. And I think that they were trying to quickly jump on that without really thinking about how much those first 2 movies meant to the fans. And I know that sounds silly saying, like, yeah, these movies meant a lot to me, but they did. I mean, I nearly dropped the F-bomb. Like, I really love those movies. And for the fans, like, that was a tough movie to swallow because it didn't have our characters, it didn't have our storyline, it had, like, this little token cameo, and you're like, why does that even make sense? And that car is not going to even... And that was that last token cameo in that movie is my biggest problem with it, because that car could not make it down that garage. You cannot drift in a muscle car. You can't mod it out, you can't change the weight to get it where you can drift. And that was my biggest beef with all of it, is because they're so great and so respectful with the cars in the other movies, and I'm like, that is impossible, that can't happen. Why would they even put that in there? Like, that made me mad. I was like, oh no.
I will tell you, the trailer for the new one actually just really impressed me, because they just had the balls to make a 2-minute trailer, and the first minute and a half is just a scene from the movie. They don't care. They just plop this scene in because they are saying, 1, this scene is awesome, we know it, and 2, the rest of the movie is going to be so good, we've given up this minute and a half of awesome footage because we have better shit coming. And you're just like, wow, that's a lot of balls for the studio to just
and it's so freaking great. Like, I'm so I love Letty. Like, I'm excited about that. And the thing that John brought up in 6 when they're street racing in London, I'll be honest, man, I want to do that. Like, I drive in New York City a good bit, and that kind of, like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, I might throw up kind of driving, I love that. Like, I absolutely adore it. I would never be a street racer. I would never do anything like that. I get enough traffic tickets just being me doing anything massively illegal. But, man, I mean, it looks fun, though.
See, and I mentioned this to Dornall before, the last time we had a phone conversation. There are a lot of things that are on my list of things I'd love to do, but most of them I have to check off as being things that are fun only if you're good enough at them to get fun. Like skiing is painful until you get good enough to stay up on an entire run. And I put like car racing and things like that. I know that's the same thing. It's until you do this enough to get good at it, it's just going to be painful.
Yeah, yeah, and just it's like with racing and these cars. I mean, I had a modded out Honda Civic up until about 4 years ago, and I again, I would not street race, and I didn't have a roll kit or anything in her, but she was not the kind of car. Like, if you pulled up next to me, like, in your muscle car, like, I was going to beat you off the line just to kind of make you feel bad about yourself. But just with the money that I put in my car to make me feel competent on the road, I couldn't even imagine. Like, and watching those kids wreck the cars in the movies and stuff, I'm just like, oh God. So not even thinking about hurting myself and the bodily harm I could do to myself, but the financial loss of if you try racing and completely bungle it, oh God. No, thank you.
All right. I like the Fast and the Furious series. I do. I don't know, what else can I say? It's fun. There's a lot of it that's fun. There's a couple of them I didn't like as much. I wouldn't watch again, but it is on my list of stuff to buy, so that is unusual. I'm usually, if I don't like something, I will not put money in it. So let's go to Dornall if he has.
He's very quiet. He's like, God, why are they talking about cars?
I'm afraid it's on my list now. It's on my list of things to watch. Maybe I'll skip Tokyo Drift, though.
Yeah, skip 3. It's not even. It's in the story. The way that the movies go, it's 1, 2, 4, 5, and then up, and then 3 is going to come into the timeline after 7, because there's character stuff. Like, you don't have to watch 3 in the third spot. Skip Tokyo Drift. Don't even watch it until after you watch 7, because the story won't make sense.
So it was a retcon or something?
Yeah, it was just...
Well, yeah, and that's what they're doing. It came out, and they didn't... The 2 primary actors, because of personal stuff that was going on, were not available, and the studio made some statements, and some studio people made some statements that were very... I mean, they were bigoted, and they were stupid, and the actors, like, this is stupid. I'm not taking part. And thank God that got fixed. But... they put out Tokyo Drift with, like, Little Bow Wow is in it, and some, like, random white guy I've never seen again. And there are there are good characters in it that they then incorporated into the primary cast of the other movies, and that's why they've moved 3 sort of to the end to make what happens with those characters in that movie make sense.
It's like having a movie that they advertise as Die Hard, and Bruce Willis is not in the entire movie except for a 2 or 3 second cameo at the very end, and it doesn't have anything to do, and it's set, in some random place, has nothing to do with the rest of the Die Hard movies, and Bruce Willis just kind of shows up at the end. That's what Tokyo Drift is.
Yeah. That was. And then, but fans got attached to secondary characters in the movie, and I think that that's great that they had that awareness of, hey, secondary character that, I don't want to spoil anything. So, like, the secondary character is, we need to incorporate them into other movies. How do we do that? Because this person, and the thing that's great about that particular character is that and I'm being super careful because it's like huge spoilers, but he's a huge car. Sung, the actor, is a huge car nerd, and he's super passionate about American muscle. So he was brilliant casting in it, and I followed him on Facebook because he was a car nerd. I didn't even realize he was an actor, and when I saw him in the movie, I was just like, oh my God, and was like super excited, even though it was cars that he doesn't necessarily drive. It was really cool, and his car knowledge, I think, has really helped with the newer movies. I think as the movies go on, they improve, honestly, for me, just from the fangirling on the cars. He's great, and the science that he puts into the driving and everything is just really awesome.
His character was the only good part of that movie. That may sound really, really harsh, but it's the truth. His character
no,
was
but it's really true. I mean, he was just great. He carried the whole thing, and he wasn't even a central focus. But and if you haven't seen the movies, like, don't Google, like, I don't want anybody to be spoiled, because spoilers make me sad. I mean, I like them for me, but I don't like to spoil other people. I feel guilty. But he's just absolutely great. And totally follow him on Facebook. Like, if you like muscle, oh my God. Like, his car posts are just pornography. They're amazing. They're so great.
I'm scrolling back through the comments to here. We got a couple of video game questions. It's a hardware question.
Oh my God, video. Yay.
PC hardware question. So Borinal this is right up his alley. So I'll give you both of you if you have anything else to say about the movies before I jump tracks completely. Nope. Okay. Question from None of Your Business. What features are essential in a gaming computer? I'll take this. You need a keyboard, a monitor, and a case with some parts inside it. There's other stuff you need, but that's the basics you have to have. Oh. We'll toss this over to Dornall to take.
Yeah, what was the can you get the details of that question again?
It's what is essential, what features are essential in a gaming computer?
Essential in a gaming computer. I mean, any computer you get nowadays prefab or put it together, I mean, all the parts are there. So it really depends on your priorities and your budget. I've built I'm not your typical enthusiast who's always building a new computer, but I've built mine and I've used prefabs, and the most important things when actually building the computer, I found power supply and video card. Obviously, and that depends on what kind of game you want to run. I mean, Blizzard games famously run on anything. I'm pretty sure you could play the original StarCraft on an Etch-a-Sketch, or one of those Tiger football games from when we were kids. You know, if you're just gonna emulate PlayStation 1 games or Nintendo games or whatever, it doesn't really matter. If you want to play brand new stuff, if you're the type that really wants to get into always playing the latest greatest games on their best settings and everything, if you want to be that kind of computer gamer, you're going to want to hit the internets, and there's tons of communities around those sorts of things. In other words, if you're asking this question hoping to play the latest and greatest, we're not the experts.
I will say this, and this is just generic advice. Seriously, if you want to hit some of the newest 3D, 60 frames per second games coming out, you want something that has a tower that has a hardcore cooling system in it, because you're going to be sticking a heavy-duty multi-core processor in that, probably Intel, maybe AMD, depending on whichever way you go, and you're going to want to overclock that, which can get kind of twitchy. You overclock it too high, you're going to start hitting errors. It'll start glitching out on you, so you can't overclock it too high, and then it pumps out a ton of heat. You're going to want to cool that sumbitch down. And you're also going to want a heavy-duty card that's cutting-edge, supports the latest version of DirectX, and then your card has it's got to have a lot of video RAM on it. It's just, those are generic questions, because I'm not telling you exactly which processor to get, or what motherboard design you should use, or even what model of card is the best. But you definitely, depending on how much money you're willing to spend on this, they can get just freaking expensive. The sad thing is you can spend $5,000–6,000 easy putting together this monster gaming machine just to get the components inside, and a year from now it's going to be obsolete because there'll be games coming up that you can't turn up all the settings on. So my advice as far as building an actual computer goes is to spend the amount of money you're comfortable with to buy the best computer you can right now, because it doesn't matter how much money you spend, it's going to obsolete very, very quickly. And so don't spend too much money. Don't spend money you don't have. Get the best one you can and enjoy what you got. And it's awesome. It is so awesome to go in and you hear, oh yeah, the developers got this secret setting that you can go in and edit the log files in a text editor, and you can turn on this and that, and it looks totally cool, and then you love that. You love having a machine that's beefy enough to carry that load, but if you don't have the latest and greatest games nowadays and hardware nowadays powerful enough that they look damn good at 60 frames on medium settings, you turn off shaders that you probably aren't going to pay attention to or notice anyway. Go ahead, sorry.
Ebola-chan is actually phenomenal at this. They're my go-to computer person, and then they're in the chat giving information.
Awesome.
Like Ebola is master of PC Master Race. But yeah, my only advice for your gaming rig is to not kick it. My laptop used to be quite good at running everything, and it got kicked, and now it's mostly made out of duct tape. And it overheats constantly. But yeah, don't kick it. After you build your computer, be very protective of it, and don't fling it across the room because that makes it sad.
That's generally good advice for electronics in general. Is don't punt them. Don't use them.
Mistakes were made. Lessons were learned.
I can't even criticize that. 2 computers ago, my computer was on a desk, and I reached over to pick something up, and I pulled the power cord, and the entire thing hit the floor. It literally bent the frame around the monitor, and I'm just looking at it going, oh my, that's dead. It's not dead right now, but I need to start scraping together every dollar I can because that thing's going to die soon, and I won't have you can't fix it. You couldn't repair it. It was messed up. I felt so sick to my stomach just looking at it for like 20 minutes. I just stared. And I'm like, oh my God, that thing it's dead. I don't know when it's going to die, but that's not pretty.
Been super lucky with Butch. Butch is my laptop. She has a name. All of my computers have names. But I had sat. It was a lack of thought, but I had sat her on the foot of the bed open and gone to grab something, and my daughter had fallen asleep in my bed, and she kicked in her sleep, and I heard the laptop hit the wall. And again, it was open. It wasn't flat when it happened. And she's cracked like this. The monitor is cracked all the way up the back. There's gaffer tape down the left-hand side. There's electrical tape down the right-hand side. There's duct tape around the keyboard. People will be like, oh, just Control C and Control V and F5. And I'm like, none of those keys work. Sorry. Like none of those buttons are real. I always tell people I can use I can use most of my number bar, and AWSD, totally toast. Those don't work. My direction buttons are going, so I'm like, no gaming for me.
That's actually the first thing I thought about is, how the hell do you play with that? No, that...
Yeah, it's really, really sad, but I've learned, as soon as I log into something, I change all of my keys so that I can actually play stuff. But, yeah, and I'm so proud of her, Butch. I'm so proud of you, baby, because she's still trucking. I mean, she's still doing it. It's just, she's rough. And I'll go to business meetings and bust out, my gaffer tape laptop and, yeah, I work for a software developer. This is my laptop.
All right, so that's the answer. Ebola-chan gave a much better, or at least a much more detailed answer than I had, or Dornall had. See, now we get all these people coming in, and we're zooming down towards the last 12 minutes of the show. I'm scrolling up to see if we had any other questions.
Can I shill Gamergate Toys for Tots?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm doing like a little hand dance too. So yesterday we had a 24-hour stream promoting the Gamergate Toys for Tots. At this point, our original goal was $5,000. We have now collected $7,349 for kids that would not have Christmas otherwise. We are 147% of goal, and I love everybody. It is a super great organization. The Toys for Tots, it's a Marine Corps toy drive done by the Marine Corps Reserve to help underprivileged kids in the States just have a better Christmas and to give them a little bit of hope and a little bit of joy. The streams yesterday were hilarious. I was on I can't use the words to shoot. It was a poop posting. They used the other word, but those guys, I was on a stream with them. I was on with one with Anon Senpai and Optimus Deadpool and everybody. That was a lot of fun. They were playing a worm game that I had never seen before, and I guess I'm not cool because I didn't know what that was, and everybody was like, "Funny," but
oh yeah, I've sucked at that game for 15 years. I
was dying. They were so bad that I didn't understand the premise of the game. I thought the point was to kill yourself, but it was no, they were really bad. So I hope they taped it because that would be super funny to watch. There was an anti-bullying stream. I mean, there were just so many amazing streams for this, but more important than the streamers is the awesome folks that donated. Fairly late in the evening, I actually got contacted from a gentleman who's a member of the reserves, and he was just like, I just wanted to thank you. He was like, here where I'm stationed, you know, a lot of the guys are kind of anti-Gamergate and scared of what's going on, and watching you guys do this and looking at your tweets about it and seeing how excited you are, like, is really changing people's views here directly that I'm involved with. And he got me to tear up. Like, it was just really nice to hear, you know, somebody appreciate what they're doing that was looking at us from the outside of who we are. But it's not done yet. We are pulling funds today or tomorrow to go ahead and send so that they can buy things this holiday season. But what we want to do is set up a legacy for Gamergate. I hope that next year we're not all here. That I hope we're coming back together to kind of celebrate the holiday season. But I hope that we have beat down corruption and have moved on to other things. But we do want to set up a legacy for next year. So if you continue to donate towards the Toys for Tots drive, then our plan is to set that up as a fund to go to Toys for Tots for next year, so that we can continue to help kids into future seasons.
And just so people know, I went ahead and put the link to that at the top of the description. So the very first line of the description, you can see right there, it has the link to crowdrise.com, Toys for Tots. And I just double-checked the link to make sure I got it right. Ebola-chan passed me the link in the chat, and I plopped it in there, so you can go and check it out and donate if you feel so inclined. And
even if you can't donate, just spread the link around. I mean, I've posted it on Facebook. I posted it to my MRA groups. I posted it to my church groups. I just posted it all the places. Because who doesn't want to help kids? You know, and it was cool. It was an awesome experience being on all of the streams and everything, and I was super honored that folks wanted to include me in it. But yeah, it's good stuff. So shilling for the kids, yay!
I haven't told Doran all this, so he doesn't know yet. When I'm posting on Twitter, most of the people involved in Gamergate are refugees, or at least a large portion of them are refugees from 4chan. They got ran out of 4chan when the owner decided to squelch all discussion, and about a third, if I can guess, about a third of the people who are most active in my followers are all channers, and so every time I'm not complaining. This is awesome. This is just the funniest thing. Every time I post something about certain topics, they will go off and drop GIFs and memes, and it is just hilarious. Just keeps me in stitches.
You're like me, I think, in learning. It's like learning a new language. I really want to write about it because I was talking about it in like terms of tribalism, like on the internet, because there's words that they use that if I heard those words, I would be like, oh my god, I'm so offended. And they're like, no, like this is a huge compliment that we're calling you this. Like you're one of us. And it's such a really weird and interesting and neat culture to get to know and to be a part of. It's neat. I love this experience. Like it's been we're like the worst internet hate mob ever because because everybody's just so like inclusive and great. And I know I'm dumb. Like I come on streams and people will be saying stuff and I'm like, you used words and I don't know what those mean. And they're so patient with me. Like they're just like, oh no, it's okay, Stream Mom, we'll explain. But yeah, it's been really cool, and even people who aren't like actively taking part in the hashtag, like I brag on us all the time. I'm just like, I am so proud of these people that I am in this movement with. They're great folks. Even the ones that like from the outside I'm sure look scary. I mean, we have people who post in the hashtag who I'm like, oh my god, those words. But then I meet them and I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. Like you're not scary at all. Like that's just your tribe's language. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun. I mean, I knew something of 4chan before this all happened, but I have had a big education in 4chan. It's been.
It's great. It's sort of like they take what a normal person might think of as like the worst of the internet. Like this is my nightmare of what the internet is supposed to be, and they sort of just they sort of put that in the mirror and they make fun of it, and so that's what you see if you're like us. Warpig and I are the same age. We come from the same place. On the internet, we first viewing a place like 4chan, it's like, yeah, these people are just fucking around. They're this is the way they do things. But to someone who isn't familiar with that kind of culture, they're going to see it's what's going to be reflected back. That they're going to see, oh, this is literally the worst of the internet.
It's not, and I've noticed even in Gamergate, like sometimes we sort of use our different, and I like the term tribe, so I'm gonna use it. But I mean, I post on something awful. Like I'm 35, and I got kind of adopted into something awful. But they have like the best food board, like in the world. Like I love it. I'm on Food Network and all of these other sites, and if I need a recipe, I go to something awful. Like, and but people don't think about those aspects of those boards. So I see folks on Twitter like, oh, this person's a goon, that person's a goon, and I'm like, well, I've taken part in goon swarms. Come on, guys. And I'm like, Mom, like I screw everything up, and they trust me, so meh. But we all definitely have, and then even within Chan culture, like there's the different boards, and this board posts like this and that board posts like that, and it's just really, really interesting and great. Like I feel very special being included in it because I'm such an outsider to it. Like I said, I get dumb and I'm like, I don't know your words, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and they know I'm not a channer, but at the same time they've treated me fine. I mean, you expect the reputation of 4chan is that anybody who isn't already in with the lingo, who isn't already part of the community, is going to get just get flamed, which kind of can be a mild word if you're on the other end of that. But I have had nothing but respect from the channers who follow me, and I've given them nothing but respect. I mean, Senpai and all of those guys have been just awesome. I don't want to say this to like insult anyone or hurt anybody's feelings, but I honestly think I have the best followers in all of Twitter because you guys are just great. It is amazing to me how cool and kind and funny and sharp and quick you guys come up with stuff. It just
Did you read Apola's definition of what a swarm is, a goon swarm is? It's a raid, but like a raid with fluffy. I am a fluffy bunny. There is no pizza involved in a swarm. Yeah, we just go in and wreck other people's games. That's all. It's not serious. We just have good time.
That
we do have the best followers, though. I think a lot of ours overlap, and I mean, just things like I'll be sad over something stupid, and it's like we have this big, weird, dysfunctional, dumb, awesome family.
Yeah.
It's great.
Last night, I mean, I seriously, I had a real, actual problem pop up. We are running out of time. I've got like 4 minutes left, so I'm going to have to do this quickly. I had an actual problem pop up. My computer, I finally got it through my thick skull that my computer had been compromised a long time ago. My computer has been compromised for almost 2 years. If that scares the hell out of you, it should. I had someone install a rat on my computer, a remote monitoring tool. And I have just gotten very, very lucky that the only things they did to screw with me were to monitor me, watch me through my webcam. You say, that sounds lucky. I said, they didn't touch my bank accounts. They haven't broken into any of my email accounts or anything like that. And I'm going through and revising all that to make sure it doesn't happen again. It doesn't happen now that if they figure out that I caught on. The only thing they did was wait until I was like really grooving to some really cool song and kind of dancing in my chair, and then play this spooky ass sound file that sounds something like this. And
it sounds like the music I listen to. Okay.
the hell out every time they did it. So the only thing they did was monitor me and fuck with me every now and then. They didn't hurt anything. They didn't delete anything. They didn't upload anything that I know of. But this is the point. Talking about followers, I threw out a 911 last night, and within a couple of minutes, I had people jumping in and responding and telling me stuff I can do and giving me advice and asking me questions. And I had a couple people in DMs because I had some sensitive information I didn't want to put out. And, you know, people retweeted it. And, I mean, I had this huge crowd of people who knew what they were talking about jumping in to help me just like that. And it's awesome that all these, and it did not have anything to do with Gamergate. It didn't have anything to do with what's been going on, because this happened, like I said, almost 2 years ago now, or at least that's the first time I can remember this happening. And it was just really, really awesome to have that level of, you know, immediate support and knowledge available. It was really, really cool. So thank everybody for your help. All right, I'll give both of you a chance to say whatever you want to say in the last bits of the show.
I'll show first. Thank you so much for having me on. First off, that was fun. If you ever want to talk movies again or other nerd-tastical things, let me know. I promise to not gush about cars for the whole time I suck. I am Remy Punks on Twitter. It's REMIPUNX. Actually, I'm pretty much Remy Punks everywhere, on Steam and all the places. That's just who I am. I don't do anything. I don't produce content. I just kind of hang out with everybody, and people are nice to me, and it's cool. So thank you so much for watching and having me.
I'm planning on making this kind of a regular thing. I like having a show where we can just talk about whatever, where the audience can ask questions. We can talk about movies, comics, whatever. You know.
If you want to do a comic one, me. Okay. Cool.
So I'm planning on making this like a regular thing on Sundays. So just an hour-long relaxation show to kind of decompress from whatever crap went down the previous week. Dornall, do you have anything to say in closing?
Hey, well, thanks for having me on. Actually, I had a great time talking and learning a few things. It was great speaking with you, Remy. You can find me just about anywhere under my handle, Dornall. It's pretty unique. But I'm like her. I'm just Daddy Warpig's personal friend, and it's been fun to talk. We talk about movies and stuff all the time.
He's a civilian. He is not in the line of fire, which is perfectly fine at this point. All right.
Yeah, I like civilians.
I'm taking credit for this, actually. I'm taking credit for this. I was talking to Daddy Warpig because I was vaguely aware of Gamergate before it was Gamergate, the whole thing. You know.
That was all your fault.
It was. I was like, hey, man, you know, you write a lot of geek stuff, you write a lot of gaming stuff. I'm surprised you haven't said anything about this yet. And he's like, yeah, you know what, you're right. Maybe I was kind of holding off. Maybe I will say something about that. And then it all blew up.
Because that's how I got really actually involved beyond peripherally in Gamergate. I'd been like on the edges, posting some stuff in the hashtag and reading stuff, but not like really involved for almost 2 weeks, I think. I just didn't want to post on it on my blog because I just found the whole thing really, really depressing and frustrating. And then you asked me that question, and I posted an article, and then I tweeted it to a couple of people, and then Adam Baldwin retweeted it, and Instapundit retweeted it, and all of a sudden everybody was coming to my site, and then the mill blog, Ace of Spades HQ, stuck it in their sidebar, and I had like 6,000 visitors the next day, and I'm just looking around going, what the hell just happened? So yeah, that was all your fault. That's where I really got involved in Gamergate, is because of Doranol.
Well, it's great to see all the viewers here. Everybody really interested. I had a great time, and we should totally do this again. Get more people involved.
All right. Time for the loud closing stuff. So if you've turned up your speakers, you might want to turn them back down. This has been Daddy Warpig's Geek Gab with Doranol and Remy Punks. Every Sunday, 7 to 8 p.m., an hour of geek talk. Nothing serious, nothing combative, just the fun stuff that we all love. I am your host, Daddy Warpig. You can catch me on Twitter at Daddy_Warpig, at Daddy_Warpig, or check out the House of Geekery, DaddyWarpig.com, DaddyWarpig.com, and Monday through Friday, 7 p.m., half an hour of the Kick-Ass Geekcast, news and commentary with your host, in case you haven't figured it out by now, your host, Daddy Warpig. I just want to say this, signing off for tonight, I will be back.